guys, let's talk about Shirley Johnson and get to it. My first question is for the Todd father.
Okay.
Spawn number five has always stood out for how brutal and emotional it was. So, did you have any sort of inclination that Shirley Johnson's story would evolve like this back when you originally wrote it?
No, no. The crux of that issue, which was the introduction of Billy Kincaid, was a story that essentially I wanted to put my mark down to say, because again, we're going way back, and we're going 1992. We're going to the beginning, the infancy of Image Comics, and I wanted issue five to basically be my message that said he is not Batman. And so when you see that last page of the brutality of what he did to Billy Kincaid, hopefully people got it one way or the other, whether they liked it or not. But that was it. That was just to say, get ready for this new character again called Spawn, and he's not going to be like the other corporate-owned characters. That's what that story was. Well, now we fast forward and we've got Daniel and Jonathan took one thread out of that thing and said, "Hey, we got an idea. How about this?"
Mhm.
And so here we are, 30 years later, with a follow up. So
Now, Daniel, was there ever any hesitation on your part in resurrecting Shirley, given how, tragic her death was? And creatively speaking, how does this story build on that rather than undermine it?
can I jump in just for 1 second here?
Yep.
Um, Before he answers that, can we just give like the audience who might not know issue five? That's like 30 years ago, right? Can I just give a synopsis of issue five? Issue five is about a pedophile, right? Who goes around abducting children and killing them. And eventually Spawn comes and literally kills him, right? So again, that's about as succinct I can get. And one of the victims is this little girl named Shirley Johnson. So that's what we're talking about as the sort of the backdrop. Okay, sorry about that. Now
No,
go.
there's no reason for my editors to include any B-roll in this now at all because you've just given all the context. We're not
Oh,
going to set it up. No,
didn't
it's
know you were going
fine.
to do
It's
B
fine, Todd.
roll.
That was great. No, but yeah, to that point, Daniel, the story obviously it's like a very dark story. So, what do back to my original question is how does that story build on your story? How does it build on that rather than undermining it? Because it's such a serious topic when you really think about it.
It is, and I think that to me, and Todd was mentioning that last page, which is very brutal,
Mhm.
what Spawn does to Kincaid, but also just the small snippets of Shirley of what happened to her, and just the bloody dress, the fingers, and I always was like, this is such a strong, like it's emotional, in a very raw way that makes you even angry to a certain degree. And I was always, I don't want to say disappointed. Spawn, like Todd said, it's not your typical hero. But it's
Right.
like Spawn knew this girl disappeared. And all that we see is he shows up, he does what he has to do to Billy. Sam and Twitch are trying to get in. They don't get there in time. And he just disappears. He unleashes his power, whatever it is. He's a very young Hellspawn at this point. And I was always like, we don't actually know that she's dead. What if she's not?
Mhm.
What has Spawn just done? Or what has he not done? Which is actually save the victim that got him there in the first place. In my mind, I was like, I go to very dark places, and I kept thinking, what if Shirley was still in that freezer? Her fingers are chopped off. We saw what happened, and she sees to a little fringe this warrior, this superhero in a tight suit, and she thinks she's going to be saved. And all she then sees is him beating the crap out of Kincaid, maybe this giant flash of him teleporting away, and that's it. And she's left to die alone. And I was always like, this has to go somewhere. in what happens next. And Kincaid had a lot of stuff through the years. There's a lot to do with the souls of the children that he killed, and it links even to, it was explained in Gunslinger Spawn nowadays, and him and Clown have a deal. That's why nowadays Shirley has this face. What I'm trying to get at is what happened in this period. Where is she now? What is she doing? And what are the consequences to Spawn letting that happen? Now, is she going to be as brutal as Spawn, anti-hero, just angry at everybody and killing everybody? Is she still going to be a compassionate person and actually try to prevent the same that happened to her with other people? That's what I want to explore. The consequences of Spawn's actions or lack of, how does it impact the people around him?
Yeah,
Nice.
the problem with the hero playing judge, jury, and executioner is there's ramifications for it, right?
Yep.
And so we've tried to turn over those rocks on the Spawn character. That again, you have to assume most heroes think they're doing good,
Right.
but at times you can ask, did this actually at times make things worse, right?
Mhm.
But because there's no vetting, it was like, oh, he killed kids, I'm gonna kill him, and he walks away, and he didn't really dig any deeper than that. He was just being very simplistic in his actions that now are going to cause complications here.
Well, you've always
Yep.
said that, right? You've always said that Spawn is about consequences. So, how does the Curse of Shirley Johnson speak to that theme, and what consequences are we seeing come full circle now?
Well, to begin with, we're seeing Shirley and what that impacts per se. Because in one of the things I want to eventually get at too, and that it played in my mind, and that's not a thing that's to happen immediately, but is how would that encounter occur? How would Spawn deal with knowing what he did or what he let happen per se? But in the meantime, like I said, what we have right now is the growth and evolution of Shirley. She has this new look. Why does she have this new look? Why isn't she just a clown minion that Clown now has with him
Mhm.
everywhere? Why is she not one of those? We have a new character as well, which is the stranger that is now together with her. Who is he? Friend or foe? We have this gigantic universe that's being built around Shirley, just predicated on that one small action of Spawn. And like Todd said, it's not even a thing that he did it deliberately or not, but it is something that happened, and the ramifications are going to be very, very big.
Now, Jonathan, I was going to say, I believe this is a quote from you, but you wanted to quote, draw cool shit. So mission accomplished, man. The book looks incredible. I mean, I've seen the whole thing and it's awesome. What's been the most rewarding or challenging part of doing interiors for the first time?
Oh. um, well, I mean, it's just like it's like learning a new martial art. You know what I mean? I've been inking for so long and inking over some great pencilers. So you don't want to suck in all the influence for them and try to draw like these guys. So I think the probably the most rewarding thing is is discovering my own voice,
Mhm.
learning storytelling. It's just so much to learn. Um, so it's every day is like a new day because the previous day you did your work and you drew stuff and then the next day it's like you forgot how to draw. So it's I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it's been a crazy roller coaster. But the reward is doing something that maybe you didn't know you could do.
And I think if I could jump in, I think we have to give a little bit of grace to Jonathan, that although he's this seasoned vet that has been inking for a long time, he's relatively new to being the
Mhm.
penciler inker, right? I mean,
Right.
I remind people that, like, when they talked about like Spider-Man #1, it was the first book I ever wrote, right? Like, yes, there was Todd the artist, but there was then Todd the novice writer, right? So, but everybody just saw a name and they just made some conclusions. They've seen Jonathan's name uh, a lot, but not in this fashion. And the thing for me, Chris, and in all honesty, I'm not saying this because Jonathan's here. I'm really proud, like almost like a dad. Man, look at that, my boy. He for him to do all that work as an inker and just oddly, I don't even know what he was doing, how he was formulating this style because he wasn't giving a lot of time to be able to do it or to hone it. And then it just spilled out of him. I remember seeing a couple things that he had done, and it was the early conversations I had with Jonathan. Is like you need to show people that look because for me, I thought it was super cool. And he was an inker, so he wasn't nearly as confident of going, well, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, fuck it, I'll give you a couple covers, right? Like people have to see this artwork because I think it's very, you've seen it, Chris. I think it's very evocative. And so it's not, I think the thing that's the most impressive what Jonathan's doing is he's not, after inking so many of us that do sort of standard superhero looks in comic books, he'd been doing that, and he sort of oddly has rejected it a little bit and come up with his own style. I call it Bill Sienkiewicz meets Sam Keith, right? A little bit, right? It's this weird, odd, funky, evocative take on whatever he's seeing, and he puts it on paper, and it's just dazzling. It's just dazzling to look at. So I'm a big fan, as you can imagine.
This was all Todd's idea, by the way. All Todd's idea.
My only idea was to show it off because it was too good to not let the public see it, right? And I got Jonathan to do the comic book for the Ozzy Osbourne album, right? And I just thought he'd be like perfect because it was going to be this cool, crazy insanity. And he did it. And to his point, he's learning storytelling, which is not like an easy sort of muscle to hone. Right. So what I'm excited about is like what Jonathan's artwork is going to look like 5 years from now, because he's going to now be in full tilt and going. Yep. And I'm like, oh man, look at him now.
I think we can apply a lot of that on the writing side to Daniel as well. I mean, because, obviously he's inked some iconic pages in comics, but, now this is your writing debut, Daniel. So, what was the biggest creative shift moving from inker to, storyteller in this way?
One of the biggest things in collaborating with Jonathan in over 10 years of working this had really never happened is people cursing at me every single day. Every page that I send to Jonathan, then I get a phone call of him cursing me and telling me he doesn't want to draw it. If it's a double spread, he will do it twice as much. But it is very fun because we've been talking on the phone for over 10 years at this point. And even though, again, I do my own thing, Jonathan is doing his own thing, sometimes we are on the phone. And oh my gosh, he complains so much. But then he goes and he does it. And I will say about double spreads, I have to say this specifically. It'll be like, Daniel, another double spread. You know how hard it is to lay a double page spread? It's harder to do the flow or whatever. And then he goes off. And then he shows up again.
Make it all sound so easy.
No.
It's just a bigger picture.
No, but then he goes off. He's upset. And then he comes back. This actually came out really cool. This came out pretty cool. And that's our entire relationship. But I like it a lot because we talk like, it's not just me writing and influencing Jonathan, even his own designs and what we talk. I can tell him an idea for a character and then he does his own thing. And that makes me go and rewrite the character's origin or have him on a different path just based off of it, as long as it's like going within the progression. Because we were talking about Sherlee in issue number 5 and it's all very grounded, but this book goes into crazy places. We already showed the designs of some of the characters. We have Bellerophon, this big creature with 4 arms. We have a bit of the angelic side with the Crimson Seraph. And it's not your regular angel. Jonathan drew him like this massive berserk creature full of eyes everywhere. It's not just you have a lot of versions of angels in Todd's universe, in Spawn's universe until today, with the armors, with the ribbons, with this or that. And we went on a completely different route. So even just the designs of what Jonathan is doing, and there will be other characters popping up every now and then from the Spawn universe, but might have been a character that you haven't seen in 5 years or in 10 years. He's not going to look the same. Time has passed, and Jonathan is like revamping the look. It's been very rewarding, I do have to say.
On that end, I mean, you sort of answered a question that I had for you guys about, maybe seeing some other resurrected characters, but without going into spoilers, obviously Shirley's death is tied a lot to Billy Kincaid and to Spawn. Is there any plan for her to confront those figures from her past, whether it's Billy or Spawn himself?
It's one of those things that it depends on how it progresses. Mm-hmm. Eventually, technically, it leads to that confrontation, but it depends on how it progresses until there, and even how it progresses within the Spawn universe, because it is taking place at the same time as the normal universe. So we have to see if they eventually clash, or how does it happen? Because, as Shirley is growing and getting stronger, we have to be careful so she doesn't kick Spawn's ass.
Can I say, if everyone buys 2 copies, we can get down the line to that. You got to give things time. So,
can you guys tease anything about Shirley's new powers? Are they divine, hellborn, something entirely different we haven't seen in the Spawn universe before?
Well, right now, the one thing we can directly see, she has, to a certain degree, at least Clown's imprint, let's call it like that. She has his look. She was in the Gunslinger universe. It shows that Kincaid did a trade per se with Clown with the souls of his dead kids, not children. I'm sorry, the kids he murdered. So there is that connection. But again, she didn't turn into a minion. So what are her powers? And we teased a couple of images where she looks normal, where she looks a bit more monstrous. So her powers go much beyond that. And there's even a reason why she's able to have those powers to begin with and be in the place that she has. So I can't give much more than that away, but her powers are going to go much beyond that.
And Chris, I don't think especially for a character as young as she is, and has sort of gone through the trauma she has. I'm not a big fan on like saying by issue 2, a character, here's what they can and cannot do.
Sure.
And the box is already painted, right? Mm-hmm. I think everything should sort of be an evolution, a continuing evolution. I'd argue Spawn's been a 30-year evolution, that you just sort of come up with ideas and you add and you subtract. Besides, we come up with a cool story. I hope it's a little bit sort of cool and unnerving, that fingers crossed that people really like this book, and then they catch themselves going, what is that? Is the artwork done by like an inker and the writing's done by an inker? Like this is like an inker book. Because if it works, every editor is going to start phoning their inkers.
Going, what you got?
What you got, man? Because somehow you guys got some mojo going here. Because I just saw these other inkers; they're just waiting to basically be discovered on a big scale. Here we go, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't care where good stories come from, and I would argue that some people who come in with fresh eyes, and obviously these 2 gentlemen, they might sort of show us something a little bit new, right? I mean, it was sort of a hope of like going, yeah, guys, go crazy and see what we can come up with. See what you guys can come up with.
I think the most fun actually is we don't have all the answers right now. So you get to take this journey with these characters and with this creative team down this path, and these things start to develop organically because me and Daniel do talk on the phone all the time. We have a different relationship maybe than some teams, I don't know, but we were already talking on the phone well before this. Yeah. So, we were fantasizing about things before we even thought to put it down. And this was all kind of like a what if. What if we did this?
we created a few stories before this. Even you even did a few designs and everything, and it just kind of like happened. And it happened. We mentioned this before. It was Jonathan was like, "Can you write something where I don't have to draw buildings and cars? If you draw something that I don't have to draw buildings and cars, I'll do interiors." And that's how all of this was born.
Everything born out of a joke.
No, and even you were saying, I'm sorry to cut you off, Chris, because you were saying how things progress and we don't 100% know. And that is true. I have some ideas in my mind, but even now, just in the beginning of the story, they're already being adapted. Even like I said, with what Jonathan is doing. Like, for example, from issue 3 onwards, there's no more double spreads ever.
It's three pages,
and that's it.
I mean, you deal with people from Hollywood, Chris, and I don't know if you sort of run into it, whatever else, but it's always interesting when I'm in a room doing the pitch, and they sort of like seem kind of interested in the characters and whatever else, and then they ask, which to me is like one of the oddest questions, like, so how does it end? What happens to the character at the end? Like, and I'm not trying to tell a story like that's like got a beginning, middle, end in the truest sense. I'm pitching them a TV show, right? And they're going, and they're like, well, how does it end? And my answer is always the same. I don't know. How's Batman and Superman end? Why? Why do you want it to end?
Right.
It should be the opposite.
Sequels, baby.
Right.
Your question should be, how can I keep it going for 30 years? Not what's the end? Like, you haven't even bought it, and you're already thinking about the end already, right? So to their point, they're just sort of scratching the surface of this thing. They're able to talk about the world and Sherlee Johnson, but I don't know. Fast forward 300 issues, sort of like with Spawn. Like I've said before, talk to me about Spawn when issue 3 was out. It was a 20-minute conversation. Talk to me about Spawn today. My first question is going to be, how much time do you have? Right? I can go all day long now. Right? So that's what these two guys are doing. They're just literally starting to build these layers that are just going to be like specific to her and her story. And then the question is, of those layers, how many of those sort of spider out, and how do they connect into the Spawn universe, and what are those ramifications?
Well, once again, before we go, I don't want to get into spoilers, but I want to talk about the Stranger, he's a badass. I love his design. What can you tell us about his connection to Sherlee and sort of what he represents in this story?
The Stranger, we begin not knowing a lot what he is. One of the things that we know it is because in Spawn 301, we had the big necroplasmic explosion that opened a lot of things, from pretty much time travel, dimension travel, everything.
I call it the official name is the Time Rip.
Oh, okay. The Time Rip. So that allows us to play with a lot of things. And that is what enables the Stranger to meet Sherlee, is through that. But it has meaning behind it that we'll eventually discover. Why does Spawn's necroplasmic Time Rip bomb has this connection? Why does it go towards Sherlee? Why does it impact their path? There is a reason why they're connected. And again, part of what they'll do next is also, it has its own set of ramifications in the universe. Because even though, again, we're telling our own story, it is within the Spawn universe, and even Sherlee's actions or the Stranger's actions, be it more compassionate or more revenge driven, it's going to have different ramifications in the universe.
Just for fun, who would be your dream casting for the Stranger if he ever appeared in live action?
For me, Michael B. Jordan.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
The kids.
I love
don't
Michael
have anybody
B. Jordan.
better coming into mind, actually.
I wouldn't have picked that one, huh? That's interesting. All right.
Well, who would you pick, Jonathan?
Oh man, Idris.
Idris is good too. That's a good one.
Yeah, I would think.
Man, if they get a Sherlee Johnson movie before I get a Spawn movie, I'm gonna be so mad at them. And both of those guys are going to be in my movie anyway, so they're not going to be available.
I won't complain.
Nope.
Is that the official announcement that Idris and Michael B. Jordan are in the Spawn movie? I'll cut that right out of here. We'll keep that on the down low. Last question, Daniel. Do you think that Shirley believes in Santa Claus?
Oh, I do think Shirley believes in Santa Claus, and who knows where the stories with Santa Claus are going to end.
Who knows? Who knows? Guys, thank you so much for your time. This was
Look
awesome.
at Chris.
I
If
love catching up
inkers
with you.
can come up with cool stories, why can't like people like you and interviewers and stuff? So you guys need to untap yourselves too. Let the world see what you guys got too.
Thank you for that advice. I appreciate that. I'm gonna have a pitch for you right after this. I'm gonna
Okay.
come up with something and I'm gonna send it to you.